So when we look at gardening, um, we are reminded again of that we are the facilitators, and for that we need to understand that it's all an balancing act, and that's why we just need to understand the microorganisms. So the first point is about giving food for the microorganisms and how to enable them to survive, because they are the ones that are preparing the nitrogen. There's the ones that are converting the elements into soluble form, and so that the plant can take it up, through the root systems easily. They are also enabling the heat exchange to happen, so it keeps the plant warm down during the root levels. And when it gets hot also, those are the ones that actually exchanging the water, and allowing it to evaporate at that place, and so it makes it cool also. um, the pH of the soil we also discussed. Now, it is not so important as of the soil, but it's important for the water. So you need to know the pH of your soil, of your water at least, because that's what is being applied and given to the plant regularly. So the TDS level of the water is important to know, and the pH level. And as we had discussed, if you have a pH which is very low, that is acidic, then you can put something like leaves of neem, which are base or alkaline. And then if you have a pH of water which is too high, that is, the water itself is too alkaline or base, then you can put in some chash or buttermilk or something which is acidic, so that you get the neutral thing going there. So it's all about just the balancing, as I said. It's not, now you will ask me how much to put. So it's just basically experimenting and seeing where you find the sweet spot. So if the numbers are between 8 and 9, that means it's a little bit alkaline or base. So you need to put just a little bit of chash, and the chash has to be old. That means very fermented. It has to have a lot of fermentation happening there for the acidic part to kick in. So if it's fresh buttermilk or fresh chash, it's not going to work as well. So you need to keep it, maybe you can just keep the buttermilk aside instead of throwing it. Just keep on collecting in it or drum or somewhere inside, outside in the garden area or somewhere, that you can have it stored without any insects coming in, or you can just cover it up. So that's one way of saving uh, the buttermilk, and it's also used as an insect repellent. So we're going to talk about that today. And we also talked about selective seeds. Now, I personally think that selective seeds is a better choice, simply because they're accustomed to the climatic conditions of where you want to grow. So I would actually go to the farmers nearby or go to the shops nearby and ask them where are these seeds sourced from. And most of the time, those seeds are able to survive this climatic conditions that you have, if the climatic conditions are a little bit harsh. So, for example, the third point I've written is selective seeds are important if you plan to have your own seed bank, as in you want to have your own sort of small, pockets of seeds that you have made, and you want to grow from that only. So, selective seeds or native seeds, as they say it, desi beej, if you say it in Hindi. So that is the right thing to do, to go for the selective seeds. And they also are accustomed to the climate. So even the fruits are seasonal. So if you don't mind the seasoning part of the fruit, then you can just stick with desi beach or selective seeds or native seeds, as they say it. But if you want year-round harvest, for example, tomatoes. Now, when you are looking at tomatoes in market, you will find two types of tomatoes. One is desi tomato, which are very soft, very plumpy and very soft, have a very thin skin. So those are called the selective breed of tomatoes. Now, desi beach se tomato aaya hai, and they are very, they don't grow all year round. But if you like want to have a harvest which is year round, then you need to go for the hybrid seeds. So the hybrid seeds have a thicker skin. They are a little bit sweeter compared to the desi tomatoes, which are a little bit sour, khatta hote hai tomato. So you need to focus on what you need and when you need it. But personally, I would say that you have to have selective seeds, some amount of selective seeds or some seeds of your own, if you are doing a gardening job, because that will depict that you are having a seed which is accustomed to your climate or your area. Hybrid seeds, again, as it's mentioned here, if you want year-round harvest, you can go for hybrid seeds. And for soil which is very, very good. So, hybrid seeds are seeds that will survive in soil which is rich in nutrients. So, if you have a less commendable soil, if it doesn't have a lot of organic waste, then the hybrid seeds will actually fail, because the hybrid seeds are, as we said, the VIP seeds. They require the right amount of nutrients and right amount of all this balance already present. Then only the hybrid seeds will flourish. Otherwise, what will happen is, most farmers also get this problem, is that when they go for a hybrid seed, some sort of insect will attack because the soil is weak, or some sort of bacterial infection will make the harvest go and decay off, सड़ जाएगा सब harvest. So this is because the soil is weak. So when you're using the hybrid seeds, you need to be aware that you should have good compost material, and that's how the hybrid seeds will survive, and you'll get bigger harvest. So that's one thing, one big difference between desi beej and hybrid beej, that the desi beej are small, the fruit is small, and the seed is bigger, whereas the hybrid seeds, the fruit is big and the seeds are negligible, sometimes they're not even there. So that's the difference, and that's how you choose which you want to go for. Personally, I don't mind having to eat from hybrid also, but I always have the desi आम जिसको कहते हैं, जिसमें बहुत सारे रेसे होते. So that is something that I am always told that ये जो देसी खुराक है वो आपका खून बनाता है. So this is the kind of language that I've heard, and I think they're right also, because when we look at mangoes, the hybrid ones, they don't have any fiber, and most of the time the mangoes are supposed to give you nutrition. And at that time, if we take the hybrid mangoes in, instead of cleaning the digestive tract, which is supposed to happen at that time, because of the microfibers in the desi aam, what we are eating in the form of mangoes is aam jisme fiber nahi hota hai. There is no fiber in that aam, so that actually doesn't have any purpose, and in fact maybe just start to promote diabetes and all these kind of things inside you. So that's one point worth mentioning. What kind of soil should you have? So soil which is full of humus. That means the blackness of the soil. It should be humus filled. The humus is from decaying organic waste. And let me just switch on the pointer here. So the decaying organic waste is what you need to focus on in your soil, is the best for plant growth. To maintain this, you need to feed the microorganisms well. So, how do you feed the microorganisms? You need to give it the compost, you need to give it the green waste, the leafy waste, that is their organic waste, and that's how they get the food to eat on and munch on. And then after that, what happens is they start creating this activity, biological activity, they start generating heat, and they keep the soil at an optimum production level. So the supply a good amount of organic waste regularly to your soil. Keep the soil covered at all times. So this is how you actually maintain the microorganisms activity. Just as we need a roof on our head, the small microorganisms also need a roof on their heads. So the leaves and mulching, as we showed you, is a good way of keeping all the biological activity in a shade. So that keeps on happening in a nice temperature. Just like the forest flows in the wild. So, if we are just recalling any picture of the forest, it has a lot of leaves at the bottom, at least decomposing or newly fallen leaves. So, this is also proof that what that is creating is a blanket in which underneath it a lot of activity and a lot of microorganisms are doing their work. Yeah. Um, Last point, we can have any questions after this summary, and then we'll start with today's slides. So the last point is, we as humans are more filled with viruses. Okay, I got the spelling wrong there. We are filled with viruses, bacteria than human cells in count. So the number of viruses and bacteria that are there inside our body are actually more compared to what the number of human cells that we have. So we looked at this picture in which the human cells is about just let's say 30 to 10%. So 10 to 30%. The rest of it is biological or biomicrobial cells, that is basically bacteria and viruses. So we need to remember this all the time. Now this last point is actually related with health, so let's just see it. A body that has an acidic pH, It means that you are consuming a lot of sugars, or maybe you are just consuming a lot of soft drinks. So obviously what will happen is your blood will also start turning acidic. So what happens when your body is acidic? It stimulates bacteria, excess bacterial growth. So you need to understand that, just for example, buttermilk, where there's a lot of bacteria inside the buttermilk, it starts turning sour, so acidic. So the acidic environment is actually promoting the bacterial growth. So you need to understand this, that if your blood is also very acidic in nature, then you will be promoting the sort of diseases and viruses to multiply exponentially. So even in controlling the human body as well as in the garden, for example, you need to control the pH of your blood. So if you remember, our dadis used to give us the, the used to give us this tonic of the neem uh, occasionally. So, what is neem juice? That is basically the base part. So, the opposite of acid. This is acid, and your blood is acidic. But when you drink neem ka juice, which is base or alkaline, it counteracts that acid and brings your blood back to normal, where it's supposed to be about 6 or 7 pH. So the pH of the blood and the pH of rainwater is almost identical, which is ranges from between 6 to 7. So this is the ideal state. If you ask me, a little bit of alkaline will actually help in your body systems to fight the viruses or bacteria. So recently we are hearing the um, big bells are ringing again for the corona, and we need to take care of ourselves and we start wearing the masks and all that. Corona is a virus, and it again finds favorable conditions in this kind of pH, which is acidic. So we need to focus on how to get our pH a little bit on the alkaline side, so that our immune system is boosted and the virus cannot multiply as easily as they can in the acidic environment. So yeah, simple tonic of neem ka juice and all these kind of things will actually make your pH go to a normal, or at least a little bit alkaline or base. So that's the good thing there. So which is the best plant for you? It depends on you as a personal choice. If you keep a tree, you'll get the advantage of not only getting the fruits but also getting the leaves. So if you have a lot of trees around you, you're able to get access to the leaves, then you don't need to plant a tree in your small plot or in your garden. But if you are having a lot of trees, then you can just go with the creepers. These are the second best uh, plant, which gives you the most amount of fruits. And since they are climbing, if you are giving them the good wire structure, as I had made, we'll cover that tomorrow also, how to make the wire structure. So if you're giving it a good wire structure, then a single plant can go all the way top and cover your terraces and cover your, even even horizontally it can cover your uh, the ceiling of your house from the top level. So it depends on how you've built the wire structure for it, and a single plant can do that, and it can maintain itself based on the compost and the root system that you have made it strong down there. So there's no problem for the climbers to go up to this height, and they actually give more produce. Like we have a climber which is called the ivy gold. Now it's giving almost like it's starting to die now, but I think it gave fruit for at least 2 to 3 years. So this normally does not happen, that a creeper can be giving fruits for so many years. But we had that single creeper or climber, as we say, it gave fruit for 3 years, and now the rotting is happening at the bottom level, and I believe it's starting to die out. But still, the plant is having the greenery because of the amount of food which is stored in the trunk of it. So sorry, the stem of it. So we need to understand, if we need the fruit for a little bit longer, we have a space for to put the climbers up. We can just grow vines and climbers, and that will give you more fruit longer than at least the plants, because the plants will just give fruit for about 60 to 90 days. So it takes about 30 to 40 days for the plant to get mature, and then after the 60th day, 60 to 90 days, they start dying out. So It's about a 3 month cycle there, 3 to 4, yeah, not even more than for 3 months. You just have the plant growing within 30 to 40 days, it's ready, and it starts to fruit, and then it dies out within by the 90th day. I'm sure you're aware that tomato plants and all the plants that are in the pots, they don't survive more than 90 days. So this is how the difference is. So the tree will give you fruit for many years to come. It will give you leaves also, and also the perching ground for birds, so the birds can come and sit on it, and if there is a small insects, they can take it away. Then the climbers are there, that's the second best, because they give fruits for at least 2 years. I personally have experienced 3 years of fruiting from them. And then there's this tomatoes and vines. Okay, this also give fruits for that amount of time. We had the pumpkins growing for at least 1.5 years. They keep on giving fruit in between every now and then. So, and then we have the plants that are just short lived, and you have the chilies and the tomatoes and the adrak and ginger and all these kind of things, which almost mature within the 90th day, and they just die. Potatoes are there also. So all this can happen, and a short lived of growth. So it's up to your choice what you like to do, what amount of space you have, and what type of time investment you want to make in the wire structure, for example. That is the most capital intensive part, and it is taking a lot of time also from you, because the wire structure has to be not more than 1 feet, even not even 1 feet, but about 10 inches. So you have 10 inches of gap, and there's a wire running up, and then there are wires running at a horizontal way, and in the middle there is a gap of like 10 feet by 10 feet square. So the climbers, what they will do, they'll just keep on climbing between that space. So if you leave a big space, the climbers will not able to catch onto the next wire, so then just keep on falling down. So the optimum is 10 inches. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So the 10 inch gap is the ones for the climbers to come up. So this is the most technically, you need to invest in the making the drills and hole and put the hooks on, and then run a wire which is a heavy gauged wire, and then you need to run thin wires between it to make the squares 10 inch by 10 inch to make the climbers go up easily. So that's the technical thing that has the investment, but it stays, once you make it, it keeps on staying like that, and the plants just keep on climbing on it. When once they die, they crumble, and the material just falls off, and then you have the new climbers growing on the same wire. So the type of material also you need to use for that wires is galvanized wires. So all that we'll cover it tomorrow. For now, it's just about your choice of how much you have for investment, and how much space you have in growing these trees, for example. Okay, another point for today's topic is what is gray water. Now, as we discussed, um, let me just show you this picture again. That we are very confined in the amount of water that we have, as in the surface water is just 0.4% available. The rest of it is locked away in ice sheets and glaciers, and salt water is locked in the oceans. So what we have is just this amount of water, and all of us are fighting for water. And there are some articles and newspapers headlines, they're saying that the next war will be for water. So it's not just a simple thing to say out or laugh about, but it might be actually true. We have seen pictures where a tanker is coming by and the people are rushing with their buckets. I'm sure some of us must have seen this kind of scenes. So we need to keep our water in check. We need to save as much as water as we can. And there are three types of waters. Basically, the first kind is from spring wells or purified water, the city water supply, or the rainwater. So that is called the clean water or the clear water. There's no sort of dissolved particles you can see through it, and it's transparent. So that's called the clean water. And then once you use that in a way, like you wash vegetables, or you wash the dal, or you wash any sort of thing that does not have toxic chemicals. So if it doesn't have toxic chemicals and you have washed that water, it turns a little bit brownish and grayish. So this is the water. You can see already it's grayish in color. It's pouring down from here. So this is the kind of water which is actually beneficial also to the plants. So no need to throw it away in the sink as is shown in the picture. You can just have a small bowl underneath there and just catch that water. And we personally are living in Kutch, so that is like a deserted place. Although we have the Narmada River being piped into our colony, um, every drop of water saved and put to right use is, I think, our own duty. And if we start doing it, and then our children will also try to understand why is all the havoc that we are taking care of, why we are taking so much details, they will understand, okay, our parents were doing the right thing, because now today we are going to fight for water. So this is the something that is a good practice to reuse the gray water. The third type of water is called the black water. Now, this one has the toxic chemicals and the excrements. Basically, this is water that is passed through latrine or the toilets, and it has chemicals like the soap and all these kind of things. So, this kind of water has to be processed in its own unique way, and it cannot be used in such as in gardens, obviously. But there are places I've heard where they use bio toilets, and they actually connect this with biogas plants, and this water is purified and converted into manure. So obviously chemicals and uh, poisons and toxic chemicals should not be there. That only can be used in gardening. Otherwise there will be very multiple viruses and bacteria there which can actually harm the produce. So just take care about what kind of water that you're using. Stay with the gray water, which is you have used it once and you have just washed something, and you are using that water again and putting it into the garden. So that's one way of saving the water. Let's move on to the fertilizer part. So we were discussing this for a long time. What is composting and what is biodigesters and Jivamrut? I sent a video of how to make the Jivamrut. So this is basically just natural fertilizers. We'll just identify them, what they are, where they are originating from, how they are made to be, and how we can make it for ourselves. So the natural fertilizers that are there is, first of all, as we said, composting. This the collecting of leaves and piling them up on top of each other. So basically a collection of green waste and piling it. So organic green waste and just piling it. Yeah. I believe we have the picture for that. Yeah. So this is called basic composting. Just taking the greens or the organic waste and just burying it into the soil. So this is one way of doing it. I will show you a better way of doing some sort of processing than this, because this what happens is, by chance if you overwater it, then the nutrients will travel inside the hole, and they will not be having any beneficial benefits for you, because you might not be growing anything here, and you shouldn't be growing anything here, because this will generate a lot of heat. It will take a temperature of between 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. So that's a lot of heat. Even any plant roots can die in that. So if it is a lot of green waste that is there, you can just pile it up and make it into a heap. So now this is making it to a heap. So the nutrients are actually not leaching into the ground. They are just being stabilized at the bottom of the ground. And at the bottom of the ground, you can leave some sort of trunks or heavy uh, logs or tree barks and all these kind of things that they support the heap. So when you start to compost, just take the heavy matter and the heavy leaves, like for example, the bark of the coconut tree, very heavy, and it has a very stiff structure. So you start to pile them up in the center, and then just keep on adding leaves on it. So I'm talking this based on, if you have a big garden. If you don't have a big garden, then we have the other ways of reusing the green waste. I'll show you ahead of this. But basically, if you have a good garden size, and you need to keep a place where you can have a small compost heap happening. So this is a really good idea. And then there are pipes stuck inside here so that the air can flow in and out. So there is some aerial activity happening inside here. So the bacteria also get the air supply there. So yeah, basically just organic green waste piled up, and then a couple of pipes put into its place. And in the middle of this compost pit, There are heavy barks and heavy leaves, so heavy structures of the wood, for example, and the heavy matter, organic matter, is in the center, and then the leaves are just covering it up, and you're just watering it periodically. All these details I'll show you again in the video, and I'll send you the video for that. But we just need to understand what type of fertilizers that we have as in a natural form. So we also have this biodigester. Now, this is the second type of fertilizer that we are saying that we can get naturally. What it is basically a new way of converting your organic waste into a slurry form. So this is basically the kind of color that it has. You can see here that there is a little bit of greenish color is happening there, and most of it looks like cow dung. So this is made from cow dung. The cow dung is poured into these pots. You can see there are three biodigesters here, and all of these biodigesters have one thing in common: they are inflated. So this is using the best of all the resources that you can have. So this biodigesters convert the organic waste into gas and into manure. So you have a double win here, because as you can see, there are small pipes. I think you can see it. Small yellow pipes going here, and another yellow pipe going from here to here, another yellow pipe going from here to here, and then all of it is going to one place, for most probably the kitchen. So these are filled with gas, and that gas is basically carbon dioxide and methane gas. And both of them combine after anaerobic bacteria, that is basically this rhizobic bacteria and all these bacteria that are there in the cow dung. They are not able to find air or oxygen. So what they do is they decompose the matter into a gas produced after that is called the methane gas. So now this methane gas is very combustible, and this gas can be used to fire up your kitchen. This sort of biogas plant, depending on its size, can supply you with gas for let's say 5 to 6 hours. So if this is not possible, obviously this is a very big farm there, then you can have something like this. So this is a drum which is 20 liters in size. I'll share you the link of how to make this if you are very interested into making this. So we have the food in here. The food goes inlet. The food is dropped from this pipe here. This is basically a 4-inch drainage pipe, so it's quite big. And then the food goes in here. It's filled up with liquid slurry till here. So it's like automatically it shuts off. The smell does not go out from here because it's just this much area is open. So you put your green peels here and the cow dung here, the slurry of the cow dung here, and then it goes inside here. It gets eaten up, and bacteria keeps on eating all this green organic waste. And then this gas outlet which is made there. So you also get a little bit of small gas amount which is stored in this area. So this is the amount of gas you will get. Quite minuscule actually, if you ask me. This will not even survive, give you fire for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But this is basically you are making this digester for the fertilizer purpose. You're not doing it for the gas. So that's when you make this kind of. This is a 200-liter barrel. So you the amount of input you put here is the amount of exit that will happen here. So for example, if you put in 50 liters of slurry inside here, that's a lot actually. You just need to put something like 10 liters. So that's like half a bucket. So if you put of half a bucket of waste and slurry and all these things here, we mixed with water, you keep 10 liters inside here, and then automatically, because of gravity and leveling, 10 liters will come out from here. And then you can use this slurry, which is actually, if you can see, this pipe is from top level. So the organic waste stays heavy and stays at the below level when it's being digested by the bacteria, and once it's digested, it travels up. And so all this area is on top area is actually digested manure and liquid manure in the form, as you can see this lady is holding. So this is very, very crucial for plant growth, and it's almost as good as gold. So now you need to understand this, that if you are, I think I'll just share with you one clip that I'll share it to you in the group, WhatsApp group. Okay, how much amount of produce you can get better compared to using compost. So there are places where you can get about 60 to 70 percentage increase in output if you are focusing and using biogas digesters. So this is the best way of converting your organic waste into manure, and you don't need to do anything. The microbes and bacteria are coming from the cow dung. So you just mix the cow dung slurry with your organic waste, and you just place it inside the pipe, and then it converts it into manure. And the manure, as you put in new material, it keeps on exiting from here, and you can put it into your garden. So if you're very keen, if you have space with you, this is the best way you can do it. Otherwise, what I mentioned yesterday, you just take some one cake of cow dung and just mix it with water and a little bit of jaggery. Just leave it for 5 days. So that's the best way, simplest way you can get. And this is the same process, but a little bit of complication is happening there. But it is an auto renewing process. So you keep on adding from the slurry from here, the mixture here, and you will get the bio slurry from here exiting here. So it's like a one time investment, but you need to make these kind of things at home. These are readily available. This kind of commercial plants are available there. So this is an example in India where a person is, it's a startup, I think. I'll share you the link of how they do it. These people are going around in villages, and they are promoting this kind of bags in which there is liquid fertilizer exiting from here. You can see the liquid fertilizer is coming out here, and this is the biogas digester, and the gas is coming out from there from the top, and then the inlet is that big bucket here. So this is where you can put your green waste, your leaves, your grass, and cow dung slurry. Keep on adding it, maybe once or twice in a week. It doesn't have to be every day. You can just put it in once or twice a week, and that gets digested. And overnight, sometimes in the night, you will see that this balloon has suddenly uh, inflated. And once it inflated, you will say, okay, it might explode. So that doesn't happen. What happens is the pressure inside this balloon actually pushes down on the liquid there, so the liquid starts exiting from here. So it's like a balancing, it's like an auto balancing thing. There's no electricity required in this. There's no sort of instrumentation that is needed to level it out or to shut it off, or to, so once the organic matter is exiting from here, the activity stops inside it. So the gas also, process of gas making it stops also. So it's like an auto, basically auto correcting and auto refilling and auto leveling unit. And it's a really good initiative that these people have taken. I'll share the link with you. So this is at a bigger scale where you get a large amount of cow slurry here, bio slurry here. But this is for, like, if you have a very small place, like if an apartment, then you can make this in a corner somewhere, and you can still get your small 5 liters or 10 liters of bio slurry at your home's place. Okay, so the third way of composting is vermicompost. Now, if you look at this, I kept it in the middle because this is the best way I've found yet, the biodigester, and I'll show you the links with the amount of food that is harvested more. Because what happens is this slurry is actually in liquid form, whereas compost is in solid form, and the compost has to be technically put down into the soil, with the soil, mixed with the soil, and then you plant the trees. But you can put this bio slurry in any sort of soil, even if the soil is very barrel, very unactive and dull and brown in color, and you put this bio slurry into it, and within not even a few days, but at least a week, within a week, you'll start seeing a difference in your plants. So when I shared this bioslurry formula in the group also, it's a similar thing, but without the biogas digesters. It's like just covering a bucket with cow dung and jaggery water and water, and you just leave it for 5 days. So that's the simplest way. But the same thing is happening here. The waste is put in here, converted by the bacteria, and the liquid is coming out. So this is a very good way of converting it, the best way to, because the nutrients go directly to the roots where they are required. And whereas compared to composting, you're just collecting the composting and putting in the side of the plant, or maybe digging a little bit on the roots and then putting on the sides. So the process takes longer for this to yield results. But compared to that, biogas digester and this is liquid fertilizer. So obviously it penetrates and goes down. So this is really good for the microorganisms and activity to happen, and the plants instantly start producing results. And vermicompost obviously is another way of composting. This is basically collecting all the leaves and branches and then covering them. You have a top covering there so that it doesn't get a lot of heat. And then there are earthworms inside eating into this. So this is vermicompost. This is taking about like 2 to 3 weeks to for it to complete. And then you have this kind of color at the end of the day. It's like coffee grounded beans that you're seeing there, coffee color. And this is the best sort of fertilizer that you can say. Or if you want to grow potted plants, you can use this vermicompost. So this is also available in market. If you have a big plot of land also, you can do this in your place. But again, my choice of fertilizer would be this small barrel that we see there in our small home garden. Um, Vermi wash. Now, this is basically, I'll just technically describe to you. There's a matka here, which is basically cool water. So the water is compared to the atmosphere, the water inside here is cold, and then there's a small hole inside it. So it's like basically dripping here. You can see this small line here. It's not visible clearly, but basically there's some small amount of water which is being dropped here, and then there are earthworms into eating into it. So there's basically, how do you fill up this pot here, how do you fill up this container here? you put a layer of you put a layer of compost, dung and worms, and then there is a thin dung layer, and then there's coarse sand, and then there's pebbles. So for example, when you start to fill up this container, you first put the you first put this container with the pebbles. So then when you are exiting the liquid, you see the head tap here. When you're exiting the liquid, so the pebbles are stopping all the foreign materials to come out. So that's where you need the pebbles. And then there's coarse sand. So the sand might be filled up till here, for example. And then we have the thin dung layer, and then we have the compost and the kitchen garden waste, and then dung here, and then worms are eating all that stuff, and on top of that water is dripping. So what happens is actually the earthworms excrements are converted into liquid form, and the liquid is exiting from the taps here. So this is called vermi wash. As the name suggests, it's the wash, or the nutrients that the worms exit from their skin and from their body and from their waste, and that is converted into liquid form. And so this is another great liquid fertilizer. So this is solid form of composting is a solid form of fertilizer. This is the liquid form of fertilizer. This is the solid form of composting, and then this is the liquid form of composting. So if you ask me, in both the cases the liquid form of fertilizer is having more better results, and we should stick with that if possible. I find this a little bit more complicated because you need to maintain a particular type of temperature. You need to get earthworms from somewhere. If you leave it when you're traveling, you need to fill up this pot like every day, so there's a very technical things that you need to look into before you start to make this vermi wash plant. But to me, if you ask me, the biogas digester can be just left alone. The organic waste will stay there, and then once you start putting new waste inside it, you also need to put a little bit of new cow dung, and it keeps on start generating again. You get the bio fertilizer.
When we are making the solid compost, like what
Yes.
you have shown with the orange peels,
Mm-hmm.
like one thing is the problem with rats.
Ah,
Lot of rats coming and retaking the soil
right,
and
right, right,
taking out the things. So,
right.
is there any other ways, sir? Because I tried out many things and nothing is
Mhm.
working out for me very good.
Okay.
So,
Um,
can you think?
I will show you. I will show you a person has managed to make uh, a brew. He calls it the brew. Basically, it's two buckets, and in the top bucket, he's just putting the green waste, and then it keeps on dehydrating that waste, And then in the bottom bucket there's a small tap, and all the water part on that composting happens, and then there's a collection of that liquid, and it's called the brew. So now that brew is used in gardens and especially small potted plants, and the top part of it starts decomposing, and so you can cover that bucket now. So once you cover the bucket, you are having this problem solved by the rats not able to come in. But if you ask me, uh, this is actually a big question, and this question actually resulted into a very serious issue. What the rats do is actually attract the snakes also. So one time I remember, we have this composting happening in our garden, so we keep on putting the waste outside, so the rats never come into our home, but just stay outside. So since it's outside the house, it's a small plot area, it's outside the house, so we don't mind it. But one day a snake came there, and it created havoc. You know, the neighbors started fearing, oh, our children are playing here and the snake has come here. Why do you keep the green waste here? So that created a lot of issue. So what I do is I actually just convert the leaves. I don't use the composting here. I just collect the leaves. And maybe what you can do is, what I do is, I'll just explain to you what I do is, I just take all the green waste, I segregate the green waste from the waste that goes to the municipality collection unit. So basically, I don't give them the green waste, I just collect the green waste in another bucket, and I just go under any sort of random tree and I just put it there, just at the round surroundings there, and I collect some leaves in return from there. So you are actually just trying to solve this problem by getting rid of your green waste and then collecting the leaves, or the sort of, even if you scrape away the matti underneath a tree, it's very very healthy and full of compost and microorganisms. So indirectly you're also feeding the tree, and the rats never get to your vicinity, but you're still completing the cycle by giving it out to the trees randomly. So you need to focus on how to make a solution by also understanding the neighborhood. So if it's like in a campus that you're living, maybe you need to take it a little bit far, because if you do it regularly every day, you will also be looked upon and frowned upon, and being seen as, why are you doing this in our community area and all these things. So sometimes you need to take it further away. So this kind of problems happens when you are living in a urban area, so this also sort of happened with us, but I found this solution like this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay. So I think I'll give you a glimpse of what will happen tomorrow, so that we can be ready with some technical items, if possible, that we can get. So tomorrow we'll cover types of soil-based gardens that we can have. Um, the first, see this picture here. I'll just expand this. So this is taken a few years ago. Actually, there's a tree here right now. The drumstick tree is actually basically um, uh, the one I showed you to, I think yesterday only. The drumstick plant is growing here. So we have the climbers here. This is one type of climber. This is another type of climber growing from there to there. And this Y structure is the one which is holding the whole a whole weight of the plants growing. So if you're having this kind of facing, this is east facing house. So if you have this kind of house and it's facing east, you can have this kind of wire structures done. So these wires are going way up to there, and then there's a wire which is running at the square. So like there's a square wire which is running, which is the main wire, which is having the brunt to bury all the weight of all this of all these vines and all the wires in between. And then you can see here there's a gap of 10 feet 10 inches, there's a gap of 10 inches, there's a gap of 10 inches there. So every 10 inches there's a wire going, and those climbers are sticking onto that wires, and they're going till the top. And tomorrow I'll show you, I've even made a wire structure at the top level. So it's almost like I'm entering a cave, and I'll show you how it looks. It's really great to even feel to be there inside there. It's like my own escape away from his the world's crowd. So we'll get to see that tomorrow. For this, you need to have at least some knowledge of technically how to make and drill holes into your walls, and then you drill and make the hooks, apply the hooks there. These hooks have to be also heavy, and they will hold this wire structure, and in turn that wire structure makes you harvest. Now this is the balcony here, it's covered up so you cannot see. So the balcony, you can harvest from the balcony there. So this is one simple way. We have the plot of land which is here, which we keep on throwing all the organic waste. I mean, in the past we used to do that. Now we just throw the leaves inside here, and so this is having still amount the same amount of compost happening there automatically. And yeah, so this is one way, and I call it the 3D gardening method. So why do we call it 3D gardens? Because most farmers or most gardeners, they just use the length and the width. So they have the length and the width, so this is one pot, this is another pot, this is another pot, but they never use the height. So the height part is used in this example, and with using the wire structure, you get a lot of good harvest. So that's why I call it the 3D garden. So this is one way of doing your garden. Earth buckets is something that we will cover. So these are basically just two buckets here, put into each other. The bucket on top has many holes. So what happens when there are so many holes here, and then there is a small cup here. Now this cup is allowing the water, excess water from here, to come out from here and be stored here. So the waters get stored in this second bucket, which is at the bottom. So if you look at this top bucket, it is holding the plant, and it is covered with a black polythene on top, so you don't have the the weeds coming out. So you have this tomato plant here inside there, and it's covered with a black polythene. And then there is a second bucket which holds the water, and in between those two buckets, this bucket, the top bucket, has a lot of holes. So what happens is, when the temperature outside gets hot, so the evaporation takes place, so the water vapor travels up through the holes and gives it to the plant, and so the plant gets automatically watered. And how, if you would ask me, how do you water this kind of system? So basically, you just put water in this pipe, and this pipe goes way down to the end here. You can also put water in this area, so we can just water it from here, and the excess water will go down and get stored in this area here. So this pipe is actually not necessary. If you see here, there is no pipe which is there. So you can just simply water here at this point, which is the opening of the plant, and the excess water will just drain down and come down from the small holes and stay here. And then once the temperature outside is really hot, the evaporation takes place, and then the evaporation cools this down area. The soil gets a lot of moisture that it needs, not the water, but the moisture, as we said, and then the plants also survive. So this is a great way if you have plants, and if you're going away for a week also, like you leave these plants for a week inside an earth bucket. Since the name suggests the earth bucket, it acts like an earth. So it stores the water, it maintains the temperature, and as you can see, there is a gap. So this bucket and this bucket, there's a small gap. So this acts like a thermos. So the temperature inside this bucket is different compared to the temperature outside in the environment. So this bucket is maintaining the temperature that the microorganisms are maintaining, and the outside environment is not affecting that area because there is a small gap. So there is a thermos effect going on. The thermos, no matter how hot or cold it is outside, it doesn't make a difference inside. So the earth bucket is a really ingenious idea and a really nice way of growing plants, be it vegetables and fruits. Sorry, vegetables especially. You can even grow potatoes in this. So this is a really great way of doing it. And then we'll cover terrace gardens in containers, just the way we see it here. If you ask me personally, this is good for a tropical area or climatic conditions which is not so hot or not so cold, because this plastic is a very thin layer, which basically means it does not shield the outside temperature for the plant. So if they are left open like this in hot areas, they will actually conduct the heat to the plant, and the plant will die off. Or if they are left in the cold, they will actually kill the plant also because of the cold. So potted plants, if you have and they are extreme temperatures, then I would suggest you use clay pots, because clay pots have a way of maintaining the temperature. And as we discussed, during winter, you use a little bit of green compost, which is basically dead and decaying stuff, but still there is the leaves and twigs are still wet. They still have a little bit of greenery inside it. So this generates more heat in clay pots, and then that clay pot maintains that heat throughout the night, and during the day also. It, since it's made of clay, it also dissipates a little bit of water from the sides, and so it keeps the pot cool. So number one, I would actually go for this type of planting methods. Number two is a clay pot, because you still need to water it maybe 2 to 3 days after that. But this you can leave it at least. I think I've left it sometimes for 15 days. Nothing happens to this kind of plant for 15 days. So this is a really ingenious way of planting that I found, and that's why I've kept it at the top here. And then the second way is the 3D gardens that I'm showing here. This again also is a plot. If you have a plot of land, and you can use it, and you don't need to water it as often. But yeah, and then after that, what happens is you have all these things which are requiring a lot of maintenance, in the sense that you need to water them regularly, and you need to check the temperature regularly. So hydroponic is one other thing. Hydroponics are very, very capital intensive. You really need to invest in it, and the piping structures and the pumps and the timers, and the structure that hold the pipes. This is you can see the square tubing is that made of iron. So this kind of things creates a lot of capital investments. Of course, the harvest is good in that, but again, the liquid fertilizers and all these things are made chemically. I don't think there is a natural alternative to this, because this liquid fertilizer has to be particular micron thick, so that the pump can suck on it and then throw it out again and cycle the water. So the hydroponics requires a lot of technical instrumentations, capital investments, and backup systems. This is what we also need to understand. If the hydroponic goes off for even a couple of hours, say if you have a voltage out, or if you don't have electricity for a couple of hours, then the hydroponics actually start withering. The plants start withering away, because the roots, they don't have any sort of soil to cling on. And if the water just stops running inside these pipes, so the roots are exposed to the elements. So this is really a very carefully surgical kind of activity that you are going to play with if you want to do hydroponics. So personally, after doing gardening for all so many years, I personally find this way of gardening my stuff easier. And then there's aeroponics. There's basically just sprinkling of thin amount of liquid fertilizer on top of the roots. So it's like basically just inside the pot, the roots are down there at the bottom, covered out of the sunlight, and then there are small jets that throw organic fertilizer for it. And these are obviously again clinically made. They have to be clinically filtered and clinically maintained. So aeroponics is another way. Of course, these are lightweight. So one thing I would like to mention is hydroponics and aeroponics, they don't require soil, so they are very lightweight. So that's one advantage at least. But when it comes to terrace gardening containers, you need to use these big containers here. And you can also use leaves instead of using soil. No, the soil is used to hold the plant, but amount of leaves, the actual nutrients happening there, the plant needs, are actually in the leaves or the compost. So not so much of soil is needed, but if you understand the composting method, then very less amount of soil is needed just to hold the plant in place, and you can get the harvest from that. So you don't need to have such big containers. A container which is half of this, but with good soil, will actually have a good flowering plant, than to have a big container with no sort of compost inside it, no micro activity going on. It will not have such a good harvest. So we'll cover all this tomorrow. Another beautiful thing I found out was this thing. This again, I'll share the video in the group. We are nearing our time also, so I'll just give you a glimpse of this. Is a quick glimpse of what this is about. This is a called a garden tower, and you open this cap and put the kitchen waste inside it here, and this pipe runs all the way down till here, and it has small holes in it. So what the small holes does is that allows the earthworms to come and eat the compost which is stored in this pipe in the middle here. So this is a really good way of gardening, if you ask me. A lot of plants growing on the sides. Then you can keep on putting your kitchen waste inside here, and you can see it's just simply a 200-liter drum, which has made the cuttings there, and using some heat and a blowtorch. Basically, they heat up this container, and then they make indentations using a piece of wood. So these indentations are made with a piece of wood, and then at the bottom they just put the pipe there. So excess liquid is converted and stored in this pipe here, and the whole structure is on three wooden pieces. So another great way of doing it. I'll share these links on the channel, because all these things require technical knowledge, and if you want to make it at home, it requires detailing of the same. So we'll just cover that tomorrow. Okay. So do you have any questions today? I think we covered quite a few topics today, and we are just left with now how to make it. हाथ में कैसे लेकर के करना है सब चीजें अभी. Yes. If there are no questions, we can end the session. Please do comment or have questions in the group also. I just love when you share your opinions, or when you share your gardens, or when you share your ideas. That also makes me grow and also makes me understand your problem better, so that we can keep on solving it together. Yes. So we'll end the session here. Hope to see you tomorrow again, everyone. Thank you. Namaste.